Thank you so much for joining me today for this discussion and this interaction. I'm really happy to have the opportunity to speak with all of you and to see you virtually. I wish we could do this in person, but it's great to have the chance to connect with high school students in Japan. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I also wanted to thank my colleagues at the U.S. Consulate in Fukuoka for putting this together and for making such a good event for all of us today. So my topic today is the U.S. Japan Bilateral Alliance, the Nichibei Dome. And I don't want to talk too much about it. You probably will get bored if I speak too long. So I would prefer just to maybe do a short presentation at the beginning. And then I'd really like to hear your questions and what's on your mind and what you're thinking about when you think about the U.S. Japan Alliance. And I'll do my best to answer as many questions as I can. So I have a few slides, a few photos that I'd like to show kind of as I'm doing the presentation. So Yuki-san will help me out. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the U.S. Japan Alliance. So we can go to the next slide. So I wanted to start first by just saying in the last few months, we have really seen how strong and how important the U.S. Japan Alliance is. And one way to see that is to see the very high level meetings and visits that have taken place between our two countries. Here you can see a photograph of President Biden on the left and Prime Minister Suga on the right in the White House. This photo was taken in April of this year, and it was Prime Minister Suga's visit to Washington, and he was the first foreign leader to be welcomed to the White House by President Biden. So the very first leader to join President Biden in the whole world in April of this year. That was a very deliberate choice. President Biden and his administration wanted to show that Japan was our most important ally, and that because of that, they wanted Prime Minister Suga to be the first foreign leader to come and meet with the president at the White House. That was very symbolic and very important to us that we could make that visit happen. So we're very pleased that that visit went so well. Next slide, please. While Prime Minister Suga was in Washington, he also had a chance to meet with our Vice President, Kamala Harris. So you can see a picture of them here meeting again in Washington. Prime Minister Suga was able to really meet all of our top leaders in Washington during his visit. As you know, President Biden and Vice President Harris are a true team. They work together on many issues. And in fact, instead of just calling it the Biden administration, we actually call it the Biden-Harris administration to signify that it's not only President Joe Biden, but it's also Vice President Kamala Harris, who is making the really important decisions and representing the United States to the rest of the world. Next slide, please. So even before that meeting in Washington in April, the previous month in March, we had another sort of milestone historic visit, which was the first overseas visit of our Secretary of State and our Secretary of Defense. It was their first overseas visit anywhere in their new positions, and they both decided to come to Japan first. So this is a picture of Secretary of Defense Austin on the left. Next to him is Secretary Blinken. Defense Minister Kishi is next to him, and then Foreign Minister Motegi is on the right-hand side. And the four of them had what we call a 2+2 meeting, which is the heads of the Foreign Ministry and the State Department, and also the heads of the Ministry of Defense and the Department of Defense in the United States. So these are four top leaders you know, the first visit of the two American cabinet secretaries to Japan, and they were able to have a really, really good series of discussions about what our two countries are doing together, security-wise, not only in this region, but around the world. It was, again, a very, very positive meeting. The four of these leaders got along very well, had very, very fruitful discussions. And again, this to us was an extremely good start to the Biden-Harris administration and to our relationship with Japan. Next slide, please. So while he was here, Secretary Blinken also had the wonderful opportunity to visit the Kante and to meet with Prime Minister Suga. So again, this photo, I think, just captures how Secretary Blinken felt honored to be welcomed by Prime Minister Suga at the Kante, and to have the chance really to make these new connections between a new administration on the American side, and also Prime Minister Suga is a fairly new prime minister on the Japanese side. So new leaders in both of our countries, making connections, getting to know each other, and establishing how strong the relationship really is. Let's go to the next slide. This is a photo of an American aircraft carrier and a Japanese maritime self-defense vessel doing an exercise together. And this is very, very representative of one part of the alliance, what the alliance stands for. So the self-defense forces and the US forces that are here in Japan are constantly working together, training together, exercising together, so that they can be prepared and ready to face any kind of challenge or any kind of threat that might be posed. And the reason they do this is to defend Japan. That is why the US forces are here. As you may know, the alliance between our two countries is now 61 years old. Last year, we celebrated the 60th anniversary of the alliance. So our two countries have been working together shoulder to shoulder for more than 6 decades, doing things like you see in this photo. While Prime Minister Suga was visiting Washington, he and President Biden released a joint statement, which you can read if you go to our website or to the White House website. But I think it was a very interesting statement because it laid out a lot of the things that our two countries want to do together in terms of our military alliance. So we committed ourselves as the United States again to the defense of Japan. We reaffirmed the fact that the Senkaku Islands, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, fall under the security treaty between our two countries, and that we oppose any kind of action from anybody else in the region to change the status quo or to undermine Japan's administration of the Senkaku Islands. The two countries, the United States and Japan, also agreed to deepen our cooperation in emerging areas like cyberspace or outer space even. And both sides also agreed on the current arrangements for continuing to realign our forces in Okinawa. So things like continuing the construction of the Futenma replacement facility, moving some of the Marine Corps units from Okinawa to Guam, and also making sure that we have a equitable, what's called a host nation support agreement, which is how the United States and Japan agree to share the burden of the costs for stationing US forces here in Japan. The two leaders also discussed things like issues like China, issues like North Korea, the abductee problem with North Korea, and also what our two countries can do together, for example, to help stop the COVID-19 pandemic. So it really was, it was actually a pretty long document, a pretty long statement with lots of details in it. So it's a little bit boring to go through, but I think it was a good, again, symbol of all the different really important global issues that our two countries are working on together. Let's go to the next slide, please, Yuki. So this is a photo again of our the armed forces of both of our countries, exercising together and working together and coordinating together, which happens on a daily basis. I wanted to talk a little bit about the American forces that are stationed here in Japan. So right now there's about 55,000 American servicemen and women who are working all across Japan at various installations, helping to defend this country. They are at bases in Okinawa, in places like Yokota Air Base near here to Tokyo, and Yokosuka Naval Base. They are at Sasebo Naval Base, and up north in Misawa. So spread out really in many different parts of the country. And again, their role, their job is to make sure the alliance is strong and to provide for the defense of Japan. That is why they're here. And so we think that's a very important thing. And we are committed to making sure that the self-defense forces and the American forces continue to work together and to coordinate with each other basically every day. Let me also talk a little bit about things beyond our bilateral alliance. So the United States and Japan, of course, are working closely together, but we also, as our two countries look out at the world, we want to make sure that we are working together with other allies and partners at the same time. So you may have heard of this group called the Quad, Q-U-A-D. It means basically four, and that's a group of 4 countries, the United States, Japan, Australia, and India, that have really agreed to work together even more closely on a lot of different issues in this region. That can be security issues. It can be things like disaster relief and humanitarian assistance. It can be, again, cybersecurity. It can be things like vaccine production. The 4 countries agreed earlier this year to really ramp up the work on vaccines for the COVID-19 virus and how to get those vaccines to places around the world that really need it. So this is a kind of an exciting development for us, that not only are Japan and the United States working together on a bilateral basis, but we are looking to go even wider, to have 3, 4, 5, 6, and even more partners and allies working together to tackle what are really global issues that can only be solved by countries working together. I think there's some other interesting things as well that the Alliance can do. I mentioned before cybersecurity and space cooperation. And so one thing I wanted to do is, if we can go to the next slide, please, Yuki, talk a little bit about our cooperation in outer space. So this is a great photo of the astronauts who were up on the International Space Station a few months ago. And for the first time in history, there were 2 Japanese astronauts, Noguchi-san and Hoshide-san, who were both on the International Space Station at the same time. You can see them sort of to the left on this photograph. And we are just very, very happy and pleased that the United States and Japan are working so closely together on space exploration issues and all the issues related to outer space. And so we look forward to continuing that kind of work, that kind of exploration with our Japanese partners going forward. But that's one thing that we really think the Alliance has managed to strengthen, is cooperation in some of these other really important areas. Let's go to the next slide, please, if we can. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about the Alliance, and now what I wanted to do is sort of talk about why the Alliance is so important and what the Alliance can do and what we can do to help the Alliance get even stronger. We all recognize here at the Embassy that the Alliance is based on a strong foundation of people-to-people ties. So this picture here is a photo of American swimmer Katie Ledecky. She's a very famous Olympic swimmer. She's on the right, and a Japanese swimmer on the left. Katie had the chance to come to Japan, I believe, a couple of years ago, and to meet with young Japanese athletes and swimmers, to get to know them and to share her experiences as an Olympic athlete. And this is really, I think, the true strength of the Alliance, is that you have young Americans, young Japanese meeting each other, getting to know each other, sharing their views, sharing their experiences. And really, at the end of the day, I think that's what the Alliance is all about. And so I wanted to talk a little bit again about the importance of making sure that these ties remain strong. One of the ways we are hoping to do that here in the embassy and in the mission, including in Fukuoka, is to really try to get more Japanese students to consider going to the United States for studying. Many of you, I hope some of you at least, have considered that option for yourselves in your own educational careers. I have to say personally, it was my experiences as a study abroad student myself when I was your age that really got me to the career that I am today. I don't think I would be a diplomat for the United States if it hadn't been for a study abroad experience that I had when I was a college student. And one of the places I was able to visit and to study when I did that program was Japan. I had the very, very good fortune to spend a month in Kyoto studying Japanese religion and Japanese art. And it was my first experience in Japan. I had never been here before, and it was absolutely eye-opening and transformational. It made me want to come back and work here. And because of that experience, it made me want to join the U.S. Department of State and have a career working internationally. And luckily, that's what happened. And then I was able to come back here to Japan. So I think I'm an example of what study abroad can do in terms of perhaps broadening your horizons and letting you think of careers that maybe you hadn't thought of before. With that, let me go to the next slide, please, Yuki. I wanted to end on another very positive note. This is a photograph of the Emperor meeting with our First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, the First Lady of the United States. So as some of you may know, Dr. Biden came to Japan last week as our representative to attend the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. It was a great honor to have her here, and it was a great honor that she was able to meet the Prime Minister and Mrs. Suga, but also to be received by the Emperor at the Imperial Palace. Wonderful, wonderful honor. And I know she was very moved and touched by the opportunity to meet the Emperor. But the Olympics, I think, are actually going very well. I hope some of you are watching them. Japanese athletes are performing extraordinarily well, and I hope that continues. And it was just, again, a great honor for Dr. Biden and for our new chargé d'affaires to be able to attend the opening ceremony and pay their respects and pay tribute to the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. Next slide, please. All right. So that is basically my presentation. Again, I wanted to keep it a little bit short and to leave a lot of time for your questions.